November 1932. Australia deployed trained soldiers armed with Lewis machine guns to eliminate a threat to national security. After 6 days of combat, thousands of rounds fired, and multiple tactical failures, they retreated in defeat. The enemy? Emus. Big, dumb birds that can't even fly. And somehow, they won. This is the Great Emu War, and it's the most embarrassing military operation in modern history. Let's talk about how this even happened. To understand how a modern military lost to birds, we need to go back to 1932. Australia was suffering. The Great Depression had crushed the economy. World War I veterans who'd been promised farmland were struggling to survive in the harsh Australian outback. These farmers, these war heroes, were given land in Western Australia to grow wheat. The government told them, "Farm this land, feed the nation, we'll support you." But there was one problem nobody anticipated: emus. Now, if you don't know what an emu is, imagine a 6-foot-tall chicken that can run 30 miles per hour, weighs up to 120 pounds, and has the personality of a drunk guy who thinks he can fight anyone. They're Australia's second-largest bird, right after the ostrich, and they are everywhere. Every year, about 20,000 emus would migrate inland after their breeding season. And guess where they migrated? Right through the farmlands. The emus weren't just passing through. They were eating the crops, drinking the water, and destroying the fences that were supposed to keep rabbits out. These fences were expensive. The crops were the farmers' only income. And the emus? They didn't care. The farmers were desperate. They tried everything. Shooting them individually, building bigger fences, scarecrows, nothing worked. Emus are surprisingly smart when it comes to avoiding danger. They'd scatter, regroup, and come right back. So the farmers did what anyone would do. They went to the government. Ex-soldier farmers specifically reached out to the Australian Minister of Defence, Sir George Pearce. And here's where it gets interesting. These weren't random farmers. These were World War I veterans. Men who had fought in the trenches. Men who knew how to handle weapons. And they were telling the government, "We can't handle these birds." In October 1932, the Australian government made a decision that would haunt them forever. They decided to deploy the military, actual soldiers, with actual machine guns, to fight emus. The official reason? The emus were a pest that threatened the wheat supply. The real reason? The government wanted good PR with the veteran farmers, and they thought it would be a quick, easy win. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. November 2nd, 1932. The Australian military officially began what the media would mockingly call the Emu War. The government sent Major G.P.W. Meredith of the Royal Australian Artillery, along with 2 soldiers, Sergeant S. McMurray and Gunner J. O'Halloran. Their weapons? 2 Lewis machine guns and 10,000 rounds of ammunition. For context, a Lewis gun could fire 500 rounds per minute. It was used in World War I to take down aircraft and enemy positions. The military genuinely believed this would be over in days. The first attempt at engagement happened almost immediately. The soldiers spotted a group of about 50 emus. They set up their machine gun, aimed, and opened fire. The emus scattered. Instantly, they split up into smaller groups and ran in different directions at full speed. Out of 50 emus, they killed less than a dozen. Major Meredith was confused. The after-action report noted that the EMUs had an amazing ability to face machine gun fire. One soldier even said, and I quote, "If we had a military division with the bullet-carrying capacity of these birds, it would face any army in the world." See, emus don't move like other birds. They zigzag, they duck and weave, they run at unpredictable angles, and they're fast. 30 miles per hour fast. By the time you aim, they're gone. The soldiers tried different tactics. They tried ambushes. They tried corralling them into kill zones. They even tried mounting the machine gun on a truck to chase them down. The truck idea was a disaster. Picture this. You're driving across the rough Australian outback, bouncing over rocks and ditches, trying to aim a machine gun at birds running 30 miles per hour in random directions. The gun kept jamming. The truck couldn't keep up. And even when they got close, the emus would just split up. One report mentioned that they managed to chase down a group of emus, got the gun working, fired a burst, and killed exactly 0 birds. The emus had scattered the second they heard the engine. After 6 days of this, they had fired 2,500 rounds and killed less than 200 emus. That's roughly 12 bullets per bird. For context, a skilled hunter with a rifle should only need 1 or 2 shots. And then, the media got involved. Australian newspapers started writing about the war. Political cartoons showed emus outsmarting soldiers. One newspaper ran the headline, "Emu War, Birds Win." The international press picked it up. Britain was laughing. The entire world was watching Australia fail to shoot birds. The ornithologist Dominic Serventi, who was observing the operation, wrote, "The machine gunner's dreams of point-blank fire into serried masses of emus were soon dissipated. The Emu Command had evidently ordered guerrilla tactics. He was joking, but also, he wasn't wrong." On November 8th, the military pulled out. They admitted defeat. The emus had won. Australia's credibility was in shambles. But here's the thing about governments and bad ideas. They doubled down. On November 12th, just 4 days later, the military went back. Major Meredith wasn't about to let birds embarrass him twice. This time, they were smarter. They used better tactics. They were more patient. They set up better ambush points. And it worked. Sort of. Over the next week, they killed nearly 1,000 emus. Finally, progress. The soldiers were starting to figure out emu behavior. They learned to target stragglers. They learned where emus would drink water. They learned to set up in areas where emus couldn't scatter easily. But there was a problem. There were still over 19,000 emus left. They were burning through ammunition faster than they were killing emus. Each bird was costing the government a small fortune in bullets. And the emus? They just kept coming. More emus would migrate in to replace the ones they killed. By December 10th, 1932, the military officially withdrew. Again, this time for good. Let's look at the final count. The military fired approximately 9,860 rounds of ammunition. They killed somewhere between 986 and 2,500 emus, depending on which report you believe. That's roughly 10 rounds per emu at best. The emu population barely affected. They continued to thrive and destroy crops. So what went wrong? How did a trained military with machine guns lose to birds? First, emus are surprisingly resilient. They have thick skin and dense bones. Unless you hit vital organs, they'll just keep running. Soldiers reported shooting emus multiple times and watching them run away. Second, emus are smarter than people think. They learned to associate the sound of vehicles and guns with danger. They'd scatter before soldiers could even set up. Third, the Australian outback is massive. It's open terrain. There's nowhere to corner emus. They can see you coming from miles away. And fourth, and this is important, you can't win a war against nature with bullets. The emus weren't invading. They were just existing. This was their migration route. The farms were built in their territory. The Great Emu War became a legendary embarrassment for Australia. It's taught in history classes as an example of governmental overreach and poor planning. It's become a meme. There are songs about it. Video games reference it. There's even a beer named after it. But here's the really crazy part. The farmers still had an emu problem. The government eventually implemented a bounty system instead. They paid farmers for every emu beak they turned in. Over 6 months in 1934, they killed 57,000 emus this way. Turns out, individual farmers with rifles were way more effective than the military with machine guns. The government also built a massive fence, the Emu Fence, to keep emus out of farming areas. It's over 1,000 miles long and still exists today. Today, emus are doing just fine. There are over 700,000 of them in Australia. They're even on the Australian coat of arms, alongside the kangaroo. Both animals were chosen because they can't walk backwards, symbolizing progress. The irony? Australia put the animal that defeated their military on their national symbol. So, what can we learn from the Great Emu War? 1. Don't send machine guns to solve problems that require strategy. 2. Never underestimate nature. And 3. Sometimes the best military tactic is to just build a fence. Australia lost a war to birds. Not eagles, not hawks, emus, big, dumb, flightless birds. And honestly, that makes it even funnier. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of history's most ridiculous moments, hit that like button and subscribe for more weird history content. Drop a comment and tell me, what other absurd historical events should I cover next? Thanks for watching. And remember, somewhere in Australia right now, an emu is winning.